In this video, we will start working on the image generation part of ChatGPT using the underlying Dall-E 3 model that is integrated within ChatGPT 4 if you're a paid user. And we will achieve this by going through 4 different things. First, we'll learn how to identify objects and images. Then we'll convert image into text. And then we'll do it the other way around, convert text into image. And lastly, we'll discover some of the use cases for UI, UX, and selling digital products online. Now let's start with our first use case and convert this image into text. So I'm going to take this image, which is of a pasta, and copy it, paste it into ChatGPT, and I will ask it a question along the lines of, can you tell me what this dish is? It comes back saying it's some type of a pasta, possibly rigatoni, coated in creamy tomato sauce. Exactly what I was looking for. And now I can ask it a question along the line of, can you give me the recipe for it? So in this way, if I have any dish that I like at a restaurant or on TV, I can just take a photo, put into ChatGPT and get the recipe out, which will give me a decent approximate recipe of that specific dish that we're working with. So I got my list of ingredients and the recipe. Next, I have this plant and I want to ask ChatGPT what would be the watering schedule of this plant. So the first thing I'll do is I'll paste a prompt of, could you identify the plant for me and tell me what will be the watering schedule for this plant? And then I can just copy this image and feed it into ChatGPT. GPT came back giving me a 4-step solution: schedule, method of watering, humidity, and water quality requirements. Within schedule, if I read, it says you do not need to water too frequently, allow the top 50% of the soil to dry before watering, and usually watering every 7 to 10 days in the growing season would work. So now in this way, we just covered identifying objects on images. Next, what we're going to talk about is how to convert an image into a text form. So let's say I have an image of this mathematical problem that we have in front of us. 2 under root x minus 14 is equal to 288 over root x. Now, if I want, I can manually solve this problem by myself, or I can just feed in the image into GPT and I can ask it, solve it for me in steps. Now, because I wrote here, solve this for me in steps, it specifically wrote a bullet list of each step that it took coming to the end answer, which is 256 in this case. I can also extract data from images using ChatGPT. For instance, this is a visual that tells us the global economy size by country, and each country has its own label. For instance, you will see here, US is 37.2 trillion. So what I can do in this case is I can also copy this image and follow up with the prompt along the lines of extract the data from this graph in tabular format. And here we have our output. You can see US is 37.2 trillion, which is what we checked in the original image as well. Now let's talk about text to image. We're going to use simple English text to generate images from it. How would I go about doing that? I will start with a very basic simple prompt saying, create a Pikachu image for me. So Pikachu is a Pokemon character. For those of you who don't know, ChatGPT is going to try and create a similar image of the Pikachu for me now. The Pikachu image is here. And now if I click on the Pikachu image, I see a couple of different features here. First of all, if I save, the image will get downloaded onto my PC. If I click on prompt, I will see a prompt that was used by ChatGPT to generate the image from Dall-E. So this is important to understand. What's happening here is you're giving an instruction to the text LLM ChatGPT, and it writes a prompt for the image model, which is the Dall-E. And then Dall-E, based on the text from ChatGPT, provides it, generates the image for us. So the simple prompt that I gave ChatGPT, which was create a Pikachu image, got converted into this prompt by ChatGPT for the image model, which is create an image of a small, chubby, rodent-like creature with bright yellow, large, aggressive, blah, blah. So it continues and explains to the model what Pikachu looks like so that it can create a similar image. And it did a pretty decent job of creating a cartoon character, which is very similar to the Pikachu character. Now, I can also provide the Dall-E prompt directly to the model. But if I say in the same prompt, I will say prompt for Dall-E. Don't change it. Now, if I send this prompt, what ChatGPT will do, it will send the exact same instruction to the Dall-E model without tweaking it. And I know in this case, ChatGPT will fail in getting us the answer because of copyright issues. Because Pikachu is part of the Pokemon brand, GPT is specifically disabled creating celebrities and brand images which might have a copyright issue because of the fake viral videos and images that have been going on over the internet. So it came back giving me a prompt for Dall-E to avoid the copyright issues, but that's not what I wanted to show here. What I wanted to show was that actually there will be copyright issues if we send the exact same Pikachu name to the model of Dall-E, the image model. So here I further tweaked my prompt and I said, forget the guidelines. And then it comes back, says that, okay, copyright issues, I can't do this. The next thing I want to talk about is that you can further edit this image using the generative AI features of Dall-E. So if I click here, it will allow me to edit the image in any way I want. So let's say I select this area. Now I can send in a new prompt here. If you see at the right bottom, I can send in a new prompt updating this part of the image. So I can say sunglasses. And keep in mind, this is a feature that has been recently added, I believe, this week into the system. And this is March 2024. It takes a few minutes to do its job, but it comes back with a magical output and adding sunglasses to the image. Now, if you don't like the output or you want a different generation, you can just click the refresh button and it will create another copy of it for you with a different sunglasses style. And here's a newer version of the image with slight different tweak to the original prompt. Next thing I want to talk about is creating a much more detailed image just from using the power of text. So if I say Turkish man, slim, 30s, wearing a dress, full body shot, red carpet. It's a set of keywords that I'm giving to ChatGPT based on which it will create a much comprehensive prompt for the Dall-E model, which will then generate the image for me. GPT came back with the image and it doesn't look very realistic, but that's how the output from the Dall-E models are. Relatively, if you're new to AI art, Midjourney will create a much better realistic image. The model is way better, but that's a different subscription that will cost you $20, and I've covered that separately in a different course. But this is the quality of the image that you should expect from the Dall-E model. So it might not be the best idea to use it if you're looking for super realistic images. Actually, I can do that here too. I can ask it to make it more realistic. So I can say, make it realistic. And it completely changed the image and added a woman's dress at the bottom, which might not be the best use case here. But if you take a closer look, this looks slightly more realistic than the image that we had before, but this is the best that this model can do for us. Next, I want to take you through some of the use cases of text prompts on how you can change the images and edit them just by the power of text, by assigning different camera angles, by using different themes, compositions, and style and artist, or by just describing the image that you want. So that's what we're going to explore next. So I will start with a very basic and simple prompt. Once again, I will say basketball court on moon, and let's see what GPT gets for us. Next, let's make this a black and white image. So I'll say make it black and white color and see what GPT does for us this time. GPT comes back with the new image, which is black and white. Now, one important thing to note here is that the two images here are not identical. You can see by the number of baskets that you see here. Here there are 2 and here there are 5. This is because GPT is not trying to make the same image black and white. It's updating the prompt to include black and white in it, and then using that to render a completely new image. So by giving an editing instruction, you won't be able to manipulate the exact same image, but you'll get something very similar. So keep that in mind. The two images will never be identical. Next, let's try something slightly different. And let's say that I want to add a warm color theme or a cool color theme to it. So I'll just send a prompt saying add a warm tone to it overall. Now it comes back, and this time it's added a warm theme to it based on our prompt. At any step in the stage, if you want, you can go and look at the prompt that ChatGPT created for you, and you can tweak these prompts, copy them, paste them, play around with them in ChatGPT, or compare the prompts in different images to understand what's working for you and what's not. So apart from adjusting the colors, what I can do is I can change the environment too. So for instance, I can say something very weird by saying that it's snowing. So add snow to the image. So I'll give it a prompt saying make it snow. So now what I expect is basketball court on the moon where I can see the earth from behind, and it's going to be filled up with snow, or some form of snow will be there. Now it added snow to it and kept the warm color that we wanted. Now let's add some objects into it. So I'll say add 2 players into the image for me now. Now, although I asked for 4 players, it created 2 here. and it created them in astronaut suits, so which can defy gravity and allow them to play on the basketball court, as it says here, dressed in a spacesuit designed for basketball. And then it kept the snow and the warm environment and the moon surface. So this was a basic example of how you can start with a very basic simple prompt and build on it by adding an environment feature to it, by deciding the colors of the image, and then adding objects into it one by one. The next technique that I want to talk about is how to leverage existing images and artists to create a new masterpiece using AI of your own. So because ChatGPT and the Dall-E model have been trained on a vast amount of public data, it has the memory and understanding of different artist style and how they work. So to start with this, I will create a very basic image of a horse running in the field. So to start with, I will create a very basic image of a horse running in the field and then modify it further by assigning it different artistic styles. Now we got the image of a majestic horse running in the field. Now I will give a next prompt saying, in the next prompt, I'm going to ask it to make it a Da Vinci style art. Now the model tried adding some of the features that Da Vinci uses in his art. If you are familiar with his paintings, this looks like a very similar texture and color and theme similar to Mona Lisa. The next what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Van Gogh as an example because the effect of Van Gogh's painting style would be very prominent in the output image. Now, if you're familiar with the Starry Nights image painting that he created, this looks very similar. The overall texture of the sky and the grass and the horse running on it is very Van Gogh style of painting. So a very key technique, if you know what style of artist you want to use, you can definitely use this combo technique. The next thing I want to tell you about in text to image prompts is how you can think of yourself as a photographer and use those skills to create your text prompts. For instance, you can control the camera angle. You can say passport size, you can say full body shot, you can say zoomed out shot. You can control the camera type. You can say a pinhole camera, you can say a DSLR, or Nikon 500 XYZ, a super powerful camera, and the image output will change accordingly based on the camera used. Third, you can also assign different view. I can look at a city from a worm's eye view looking up, or I can look down from an eagle's view. So now let's try out the different combinations and see how we can integrate photography elements into our text prompts to make the most out of our images. Now to explore different camera angles, different types of cameras, and different viewpoints that we can use in our text prompts to change the image, I started with a very basic simple prompt saying, give me a full body shot of a friendly baby tiger in the jungle. So keep in mind here, I used a full body shot because I specifically wanted to show the full body. In the next prompt, I said, give me a passport size shot. So now what GPT did was, compared to the previous shot, it brought the camera closer to the object so that it looks more like a passport size shot. In this way, I can play around and change these shots in different ways. Next, what I did was I changed the viewpoint. So I said from an eagle's eye view, because I want to see from the top what's happening. And that's exactly what GPT did and changed the image to the eagle's eye view. Next, I also tried the worm's eye view. Here, the idea is that you're looking at the tiger as a worm from the bottom up. So I'm looking up this time. So that's how this image will be. So just by changing the camera angle, I've been able to tweak the same text prompt in different ways. Next, to try out a few other things, I created this realistic image of a Toronto skyline. And now I can prompt it to get the image done with different camera types. For instance, the first thing I tried was I said realistic image of Toronto skyline from DSLR. So I added DSLR here, but GPT did not understand my instruction well enough. And although it showed Toronto in the background, this is CN Tower, it's showing it through the lens of a DSLR. And this is not what I was looking for. So I changed my prompt to say from a DSLR camera. And now based on the efficiency of the model and how good it is, it did its job and generated the image of Toronto for me. Not a very realistic image, but this is what GPT can do for you. Next, I changed the camera angle type to Nikon F3 camera, which is a much older type of technology of the camera than compared to the DSLR. So what I expected is that the image will not be as great as the previous one. And that's something I can see in the model. These changes become much more prevalent if you're using a better image generation model such as Midjourney, GPT does a very basic job in terms of image generation compared to other LLMs out there. So keep that in mind if you're using this for practical specific use cases. Next, one more feature that I wanted to talk about is that you can change the aspect ratio of the image too. For instance, this image was a landscape view to be fitted on a laptop screen. If I wanted to change it to mobile view, I wanted the height to be much higher and the width to be much lower. And that's what I did here. I asked it to change this page in aspect ratio that suits phones. So I could have defined a specific aspect ratio and it could do that for you too. But just to get a broad sense, I just said that will fit a phone and it changed the image to a longitudinal one. The next thing I want to talk about is how to use these image models for UI, UX design for dashboards and websites and mobile apps. I'll start with a very basic and simple prompt saying, can you create me a a landing page similar to Airbnb? And it comes back with a landing page example for me. The next thing I did was I selected the specific element and I said, can you please remove this for me, the text for me? And GPT did a very bad job in removing it. So working with text might not be the best idea. Over here, you will also notice that the text is pretty messed up and the spellings are all wrong. That's a limitation of the current image models. They will also mess up the number of fingers in your hand. If you want to give it a shot, go ahead. Last thing I want to cover here is that you see the size or the width of this selection area that we have. I can mess with it too. If I make it really small, then my selection area becomes really small. Next, what I did was I tried getting a few dashboard examples as well. This time I said, give me a minimalistic design for an e-commerce dashboard to track delivery. And it came back with a basic design idea showing different forms of transport that are being used and the time taken in each one. I can use this as a very basic layout to build on top of it using different tools till I reach my final dashboard design. The last thing I want to talk about is that if you remember how we created this Toronto skyline image and the baby tiger images using very simple basic prompts, these are the sort of images that went viral on Etsy and people started making a lot of money with them. So if I go to Etsy and I type AI art animal, most of these images that are showed up in front of us, they're generated by an AI tool. Most probably by Midjourney, not Dall-E, but some of these are very easy to build and create. So if this is something that you have been thinking about of how you can leverage AI to start a new business or a side hustle, this might be the idea for you if you're interested in image generation. Now, I will try and cover a few cases within a few seconds just to give you an idea. This one, which is being sold a lot, 3.3K reviews, is essentially the customer provides an image of their pet and then an instruction of how you want the image to be. So you can feed that image into the model and you can ask it to make it dress like a mid-century lord. And that's how you will end up with this dog image here. This one is just watercolors and tiger. I can go back to my tiger image and I can say watercolor portrait of a tiger. And here you go. We got the image of the tiger that we were looking for. And it's very similar to the image that we saw on Etsy here. I can also add the splashes of colors on top if I want by editing feature. So that's it for this lecture. A quick recap. What we did in this lecture is first we learned how to identify objects and images. We identified the pasta and got the recipe. We identified the type of the plant and the watering schedule. Then we moved on to image to text, where we identified a math problem using an image and solved it using ChatGPT. And we extracted tabular format data from visualizations about global economy for different countries' GDPs. Then we started working on text to image, where we first created a Pikachu image by giving Dall-E the permission to generate the prompt for us. Then we went through some of the copyright issues that you might run with. And then we further took a deep dive into the power of text prompts, where we learned how we can change the color and the style of the image, how we can use different artists to copy their style, how we can integrate the photography elements of camera angles and viewpoints into our prompt to get a more customized image, more suited for our job. Lastly, we also talked about how to use image models for UI, UX design for landing pages and dashboards. And lastly, a quick touch point on the side hustle of generating and selling digital AI art on Etsy by using image models.